You're watching Thunder Thursday at newsok.com. I'm Darnell Mayberry, Assistant Sports Editor at the Oklahoman, joined by my very best work friends, Brett Dawson, Thunder Beat Writer, Eric Horn, Thunder Beat Writer, and Barry Trammell, esteemed columnist. Guys, let's start with the All-NBA teams. They came out today. No surprise, Russell Westbrook was named first-team All-NBA for the second consecutive year. Other than Russell Westbrook, any surprises with the All-NBA team? Snubs? What's the significance?
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily snubs or surprises. I think the teams lined up really well in accordance to who played well this season. You know, there are always going to be those couple of votes where somebody's like, who voted for, Steph Curry for first team as opposed to Russell Westbrook. Those are one of those things that can be debated until the end of history. But I think that it's really difficult to make these decisions. On the record, I can say that because I voted for Russell Westbrook, so I don't have to.
Who did vote for Curry over Westbrook?
We don't know that yet.
We won't know until June 26th.
Maybe it was
unless somebody outs themselves. But
maybe it was our man. Maybe it was our man Anthony Slater off in the Bay, which I don't think it was him, but it might be.
If you don't know at home, there was one person who did not vote for Russell Westbrook for first team. He garnered 99 of 100 votes. I believe James Harden got 100 of 100 votes. But someone felt that Russell Westbrook averaging a triple-double did not warrant first-team All-NBA consideration. Brett, what did you make of the All-NBA teams that were announced today?
I was a little surprised by that, a little bit surprised by Russell Westbrook not being a unanimous pick. Maybe even slightly more surprised that LeBron James wasn't. Somebody also left LeBron James off their first team. So those two things, it's hard to even call those snubs when one person doesn't do that. I was interested, first team center was the thing I really, going in, it was the one thing, I had sort of pre-written our story to post when it happened. And the one thing I didn't put in there was who the first team center was going to be. I had to wait until after the fact. Anthony Davis wins it. I think that's right. I think that's the right call. I think it's the right decision. Anthony Davis he played most of his minutes at center. It makes a lot of sense. But that was probably the most debatable thing. You could have gone Rudy Gobert. You could have even gone Draymond Green there if you chose to.
That was my most difficult decision of the voting, was the first team center. And also some of the guys on the back end in terms of third team. I think I wavered between Karl Anthony Towns and Nikola Jokic. I went with Jokic because of his efficiency numbers and the way that he kind of carried that Denver team that was young and inexperienced to the postseason. Denver made the postseason.
No.
They didn't make it. They were close. They were very close. Correction.
You were there when they didn't make it.
I was so close. I was there.
You wrote the story of them not making the playoffs.
It's been a long few months, y'all. Pardon me. But the first team center spot was tough. Went back and forth between Anthony Davis and Rudy Gobert, and I ultimately went with Gobert. But there's really no wrong answer there. I think they both had outstanding seasons. Now, Rudy Gobert, he led his team to the playoffs. That was a real thing. So I'm not wrong there in terms of who made the playoffs. But sorry, Denver. Sorry to bring that terrible memory back again for you. But a great one for Russell Westbrook.
Let's talk about Russell Westbrook a little bit more with this All-NBA first-team selection. You guys just wrapped up the Thunder a Day in the month of May series. We look back at all 15 players on the Thunder roster, analyze their seasons. Brett, you posed the question, could he be better? Barry, you graded him as you did all the other players on the Thunder roster. Is this a sign, second straight year that he's made NBA All-NBA first team, is this a sign that he is continuing to get better?
I don't know, but he is continuing to get better. I mean, every year we see something new from Russell. His rebounding was off the charts this year. Even if you allow for the 1 to 2 rebounds a game that his teammates sort of let him have, he still was rebounding better than ever. I thought his passing was better than ever. It wasn't like he was throwing a whole lot of passes over to Kevin Durant for 24-footers, and yet his assists still in double digits. So I think he was continuing. Has been every year. He's added to his game, and frankly, there's still a few things he could get even better at.
Such as?
Well, he could play some defense from time to time. I mean, that would be, I'm not trying to begrudge Russ. I know he's got to rest somewhere, and we don't recommend it's on the bench because then the team falls apart. But if he played better defense, if he played big-time defense, then you're talking about an unbelievable player. So that's one way. I don't have much criticism of his offense. I mean, he turned himself into a solid three-point shooter this season, for crying out loud. And once he did that, there's not much left on offense.
Eric, Brett, I'll ask you both a separate question. Either of you guys could tackle whichever one you want. What did you feel like Russell Westbrook did better this year? Brad, I know this was your first year covering the team, but what do you feel like Russell Westbrook did better this year, and what's one thing you think he can come back better with next year?
Well, to me, they're kind of the same thing. He did shoot the three-point shot better. And putting defense aside, because defense is the one thing I think he needs most to focus on at this point in his career if he wants to make a significant jump and be significantly better. But he was a better three-point shooter. He bucked a 4-year trend. 4 straight years, his three-point percentage had actually dropped. He got up this year to a career-high three-point percentage. And so I think he can continue in that regard. He can take better three-point shots. He did have a lot of games. He had 0 for 7 games. He had 2 for 10 games. He can be a little bit more consistent shooter there. As his athleticism dips, and it will dip some, I think that's going to be a very important element of his offense.
For me, a fourth quarter performance, not just offensively but defensively, he was extremely focused in the fourth quarter. He had to be for this team this season. I think I wrote a story, and credit to you, Darnell, for helping me with this story. But during the season, when Russell Westbrook had these traditional numbers where he wasn't very good at the end of games, and since a game on the road against Houston in the regular season, he really turned that around and became the league's preeminent fourth quarter player. So the fourth quarter, the closing of games, we ended last season with the ugliness of Game 6 and Russell Westbrook with the countless turnovers in Game 6 in Oklahoma City, and Russell Westbrook, he didn't completely erase that because that's never going to be totally erased, but he did a lot in terms of, getting the league to understand that this guy is incredible in the clutch, and he did it without Kevin Durant as his support.
Okay, guys, let's move on to the draft lottery. The NBA draft lottery was held Tuesday night, and the Celtics were the big winner. The Lakers got the number 2 pick behind the Celtics getting the first overall pick. Sixers will pick 3rd. The Thunder slotted at 21st overall. Guys, who could be there for the taking for the Thunder?
Brett, let's start with you.
Well, there's a lot of guys who could be there for the taking. There's a real range of interesting guys. A guy who really intrigues me more than anybody else intrigues. I'm not saying he'll be there. I'm not saying he's necessarily the best pick. But Harry Giles, who played at Duke this year, for a long time, people thought he was going to be the number 1 pick in this draft 2 years ago, maybe even a year ago before he tore his ACL, a second ACL tear. There are some questions about when and if he's going to be back to what he once was when he was the best high school player in the country. But this is a guy who was once thought of as the likely number 1 pick in this draft. He's 6'10". He can play out on the floor. He's multi-talented. That's a guy I think somebody will probably take that risk before you get to 21. But if he's there at 21 and nobody's done it, the Thunder doesn't need a power forward type guy, but man, he'd be hard to pass on at that point in the draft.
21st. This is a guy who a lot of people pegged as potentially the number 1 overall pick. Eric, do you think he'll slide to the 21st pick?
I'm not so sure. I think that the closer you get to draft time, and if all the medical stuff comes out right on Harry Giles, he'll be a guy who will end up going to the back end of the lottery. Now, in all the draft projections we've seen thus far that have come out since the lottery's been set, he's a guy that could potentially be there. Some other players are rising, and Harry Giles is a guy that you didn't see a ton of production from him coming off of a knee injury in high school in his first season at Duke. There's some players in that range. While the Thunder has a logjam in the front court, guys like UCLA's TJ Leaf, Syracuse's Tyler Lydon, kind of similar guys who can step out, that stretch 4 variation, that can shoot a 3, can also finish at the rim. Guys that are more aggressive than they actually look. And then there's some, those versatile players like a guy in Oregon's Jordan Bell who showed really well in the tournament. I like him personally. I think he's got a little bit of, people are not going to want to hear this, but Draymond Green in him in terms of, being able to block shots as being an undersized center or forward. So there are going to be some guys there that the Thunder, people might question, why should the Thunder take this guy? Because he's a power forward or a potential center or a stretch when the Thunder has a lot of those players. But if in the event that they do trade Enes Kanter, if Taj Gibson walks out the door in free agency, you're going to have to replace those bodies. And as we know, Taj Gibson was really valuable. Enes Kanter was valuable offensively. And those could be guys that could slide in and potentially play immediately.
For those who don't know at home, Barry Trammell is starting a campaign for the Thunder to get a backup point guard. I think you're on the record of saying the Thunder needs a backup point guard. Would you draft one at 21st?
I would not.
And would he help if you did? I love Jawan Evans.
I would not draft him. I would not draft a backup point guard with the idea that this guy's going to be my backup point guard next season. I think when you draft at 21, most of the guys who are ready to play are going to be gone. A guy like Jawan Evans, guys in that neighborhood, guys 18 to second round, it's going to take too long for them to develop. They're going to be, in some ways, like Cameron Payne, which he might still be a ball player, but here 2 years into the NBA, he's still not ready to help a team. So the Thunder needs immediate help. I would go drafting elsewhere, try to trade or sign a backup point guard.
We've also floated the idea around the office, Barry, of potentially trading that pick, trying to get some veteran players in here. What do you think of that idea?
Well, if your trade of sending the pick and Enes Kanter for Jay Crowder and Marcus Smart, I will actually drive to Boston and drive those guys back. I would do that, and I'd do it on my own time. I'd take vacation. It would be a fantastic trade. If you could get somebody like that, just an all-around player who can play backup point guard, that's a fantastic. That's what the Thunder needs. That's because the truth is, backup point guard is a limited role in Oklahoma City. You're only going to be needed 10, 12 minutes a game. But if you get a versatile backup point guard, a guy that can fill in for Russ 10 or 12 minutes and play 10 or 12 minutes alongside him, well, then you've got a ball player.
I don't like for these guys to throw out trade scenarios with the Thunder, but I can. I also mentioned Damari Carroll, Corey Joseph for Enes Kanter, Kyle Singler, and the 21st overall pick. What do you think of that one?
Well, I think it works even better because I actually do have a passport and I could drive to Toronto and drive those guys back. So I hope you got Sam Presti's ear because I like both trades. You're talking about multiple good players. I mean, You're talking about wings that really defend, Jay Crowder and Damari Carroll, guys that can shoot pretty good, and then you're talking about really solid backup point guards that can defend and then can cause some problems on offense. So I like both trades.
And the idea of Boston getting the #1 pick, while it doesn't guarantee that the Thunder is going to end up with some great player like a Paul George or a Jimmy Butler or something like that, Boston's going to have a surplus of goods, as you guys talked about. Like, I'm not throwing trade rumors out there, but Boston's going to have a logjam at guard, presuming that they pick Markelle Fultz, or even if they pick Lonzo Ball, or even a De'Aaron Fox. They're going to have to offload one of those guards because some of those guys are coming up on contracts. A guy like Marcus Smart, who's going to be up on his contract in a couple of years. A Terry Rozier, who I know you love, Darnell. He's a guy who's going to be looking to get some money because he's had a good playoffs for them in terms of his efficiency numbers. So those are guys that Boston is potentially going to be calling other teams about to see if they're interested, and that's when you might be able to work in a couple of teams, and that's where the Thunder could come in handy and say, look, we've got this guy, say an Enes Kanter, who's got a salary, who can match up with some of the guys that you're trying to offload, say Jay Crowder, say Terry Rozier, James Young, buy low all-stars, knock, knock. But Boston having the option of the first pick means that there are going to be more options of players out there for other teams to potentially call and be inquired about.
Brett, a lot of Thunder fans love the idea of trading up. How likely is it that the Thunder can trade up from 21, and how high could they go if they tried to explore that option?
Well, I don't think it's super likely in the sense that this is it's considered a very strong draft. You'd need somebody who has a pick in this draft that's somewhat expendable, who's not really looking to be young, who might want to take on a piece like an Enes Kanter, take that 21 pick. I don't know who's out there that might want to do that. But there are some guys I think are worth trying to move up for. A guy we've talked about a lot, OG Anunoby from Indiana, is a guy who, if you could move up just a little bit, 6 spots maybe, I think you'd have a chance to get him. I don't think that's super likely with what the Thunder has to work with. I think it's more likely they might still move that 21 pick, but I don't know that it would necessarily be to move up in this draft.
Okay, guys, the draft is, I believe, June 22nd. It's a Thursday night, as always. We'll have plenty of draft discussion and articles in the Oklahoman and right here on newsok.com in the coming weeks. But let's move on. Guys, one more thing about the draft lottery itself. Barry, you wrote a column today saying that the draft lottery needs to be done away with. Why is that?
It is counterproductive to a thriving NBA because the draft lottery, we now have 30-something years of scholarship on this. The draft lottery entices some teams to lose on purpose. And that is complete opposite of what a competitive athletic league should be about. I know why teams do it. I understand the rationale behind tanking. For a precious few, it actually works out. But the truth is, teams that resort to losing on purpose is a cancer in the league. And we got to stop it. And the only way I know to stop it is quit rewarding people for doing that and just say, we're not going to give draft order in terms of one loss, even on a lottery basis. In the NFL, they do it, and teams don't tank very much. Once every 5 years, you can find a team that tanks. In the NBA, it's 5 teams every year. and sometimes more. So it's just a case of fan bases. Philadelphia, for literally now 4 years in a row, Philadelphia has been handed a bill of goods by a basketball team where the players are trying, but the organization is not trying to put the best 5 players on the floor at any time, and it's a travesty.
You can read Barry's column at newsok.com right now or in today's Oklahoman. Barry mentioned the alternative, the wheel, this wheel idea. Could you explain what the wheel is?
Yeah, well, basically what you do is there's 30 teams in the NBA, and you just set the course for the next 30 years. You assign a slot for every one of the 30 slots, 1 through 30. You assign each one of those to a certain team for all 30 years, so that over a 30-year period, you're going to pick 28th once, you're going to pick 17th once, you're going to pick 11th once, you're going to pick 4th once, you're going to pick 1st once. And you can do it randomly, you can do it in reverse order, you can give all the bad teams right now the early slots in the next few years, however how you want to do it. But that way, teams have no incentive to lose, you have every incentive to win and get better. To me, that's a much better way than this pipe dream of people trying to lose, trying to get the first pick in a year when there's an Anthony Davis coming out and it can remake your franchise. The truth is, most years, the 1, 2, 3 picks don't transform a franchise. We keep seeing it over and over that the bad teams stay bad even though we keep giving them early picks and we keep watching them try to lose.
Eric, Brett, I'm all for anything that puts basically subsides the tanking in the league. Anything that takes away from tanking, curbs that, I'm all for. I don't know if the wheel is the best method. Is there another method out there that could basically do away with tanking?
Well, I mean, there's one that not a lot of people, some people have talked about that some people don't like because of the possibility of, you could throw everybody in a lottery. You could throw everybody in the lottery and weight it equally. The problem with that is, what happens this year when it's a really good class and it's a top 5 and Golden State gets a top 5 pick? That's going to upset people. That's going to bother people. When Cleveland gets the number 2 pick in this year when they and Golden State are clearly ahead of everybody else. I like the idea of that in a way because it leaves some more things to chance, and it at least leaves open this option that you could get a Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway situation where a team does get 2 high draft picks and transforms its franchise in very short order. I like the idea of being able to do that. It would be hard to have done what's happened in Oklahoma City if you had the wheel, unless you were very fortunate with the way that wheel laid out, that you would get Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook within a couple of drafts. So I like the idea of something that still leaves open this possibility that you could transform your team in a couple of years in the lottery.
Eric, here's me playing devil's advocate, okay? Fans, I don't think, have a problem with tanking. If they know that their team's not going to make it anywhere, I don't think that the fans care of a particular organization, care if their team tanks to get a better draft pick.
Some fans would rather their team tank to get a draft pick. I mean, you had instances this year where Miami or Dallas, they play above their heads and they play themselves out of potentially getting a top 5 pick. Sometimes if you're a good team, or a good team on accident rather, or you're better than you expected, it hurts your chances of actually getting a draft pick in this system, which is kind of why I like the idea of the wheel. It's set and you know exactly where you're going to be picking for however long. Now, the wheel doesn't exempt the notion that these GMs could still trade their picks, that they know they're going to have a number 1 pick in this year. It doesn't exempt a team from being like Brooklyn and basically trading away their future stupidly in order to win immediately. So even though the wheel is a good idea, it still doesn't safe-proof. Any system wouldn't safe-proof us from having incompetent GMs.
Yeah. The NBA's got to do something. The tanking issue is real. It's one of many issues in the league right now, but tanking is right up there at the top. Guys, let's move on. Eric, a couple of Thunder players are trickling back in town. What do we know about who's in town and what are they doing?
Well, you know, these guys are just working out individually. We talked to a couple of guys yesterday, like Josh Hustis, Domantas Sabonis, and they talked about, you know, being in town and it being a good time for them to get this additional attention from maybe some individual coaches. You know, they're not doing a ton of stuff together, but they're working on their individual games, and then they're going across the country and playing in different areas. You know, Josh Hustis talked about going to Spokane, Washington, Los Angeles, Miami. And it was interesting to really sit down with those guys and kind of get where they're at in terms of their heads, and you know, because they're guys that had opportunities to play, but they didn't actually get an opportunity. I mean, Domantas Sabonis got an opportunity to play, but Josh Huestis kind of never got his feet off the ground with the Thunder. He was stuck with the Blue. They traded for Jeremy Grant, who basically played the same position. So, it's a lot of the guys that are going to be preparing for the Summer League, guys like Doug McDermott, Josh Huestis, Samaje Christian, Domantas Sabonis, even Alex Abrinas. And then it'll be interesting to see how they take their summers from here until Summer League, when we'll get to see them in Orlando.
Brett, who can we expect in Summer League?
The guys you sort of expect from the Thunder, in terms of guys who played for the Thunder, Domantas Sabonis and Samaje Christian are going to play. Alex Abrinas won't. He'll be here some of the summer, but he won't play in Summer League. He's got some other commitments. You're going to see some of the bigger guys. Josh Huestis obviously is going to play, but some of the big successful guys from the Blue, Danielle Hamilton and Dakari Johnson, are both going to play for the Summer League team. That's the plan right now. And then assuming the Thunder keeps that 21 pick they draft and don't send that guy somewhere else, he would also play. Or if they do something else in the draft, second round, buy their way into the second round, whatever, those guys would be on the team as well.
Dakari Johnson, the great hope.
That's right.
All right, guys, let's wrap it up with this. Russell Westbrook and his wife Nina gave birth to their first child, Noah Westbrook. 7 pounds and a couple of ounces. Guys, I want to know 7'5". I want to know some predictions for you guys. Okay, this kid we know is going to be an athlete, right? What sport? What position?
I think Noah Westbrook in what year? 2041 will be a world-class tennis player.
Tennis.
He's going to be a country club son. I'm sorry, when you grow up the son of a perhaps billionaire, you lose some of your drive. So, Russell Westbrook grew up with a lot of drive and determination. Hard to do that as a son of a billionaire. But think about it. This kid's going to be ambidextrous. His old man is. What would an ambidextrous tennis player with a phenomenal athletic ability look like? Forehand with both hands. It would be an unbelievable tennis player. I think Noah Westbrook's going to be a tennis champion.
I'm going to try and at some point in time have a conversation with Russell Westbrook about pushing his son, not pushing, but suggesting that his son gets into the U.S. national team soccer program. The young man's mother is 6'1", Russell's 6'3". We don't have a ton of really tall soccer players or super athletic soccer players in the pool right now. I think he could do an incredible job in leading the U.S. national team to their first World Cup victory. As you said, the young man might end up being in a country club sport, and soccer's pretty close to that. It's not exactly. It's getting more into the urban areas, but soccer is one of the sports that are usually reserved for a more affluent community. I think he could be, with Oklahoma City growing their soccer community with the energy, I think young Noah could really get into that and get into their feeder system. Or if he ends up growing up in California or something, I'm not saying Russell Westbrook's leaving, y'all, but he's from California. If the young man ends up in California, he'll get a great soccer education there, and then he can be a national hero. So I'm all for it. Noah Westbrook, Noah Pele Westbrook, by all means, let's have it.
We got tennis, we got soccer. Brett,
have you guys met Russell Westbrook? His kid's going to be a point guard, or if he grows up, he's going to be a power forward who controls the ball and can switch and play defense at all kinds of different positions. He's going to do that up until he reaches high school, and if he's not good enough to make it to the pros, I'll tell you exactly what he's going to be. He's going to be a point guard in a really good movie about a point guard, because he is going to have an LA background. So if basketball doesn't work out, Noah Westbrook, he'll be a fine actor.
I don't know about Nina and what she values and how paranoid she might be with football, but I'm going to go football. If she's okay with it, I'm going to go football, and I'm going to say he's going to be a ball-hawking safety. Either that or a phenomenal wide receiver.
Russell Westbrook would be all-pro as an NFL defensive back. Bob Stoops, the first time he saw him, he said, that guy's a defensive back.
It's the comparison he gets the most. I think his son he'll have the frame for it, the size, and obviously the athleticism. Noah Westbrook, welcome to the world. That's all for Thunder Thursday. For the best Thunder coverage anywhere, stay here at newsok.com and be sure to read us every day in the Oklahoman.